At first, I thought it was a joke, just a casual getaway with friends. But what happened in that house, what we allowed to happen, became the most unexpected, emotionally intense experience of my life. It blurred the lines between love, trust, desire, and betrayal. This isn't fiction. This is a real story of infidelity. A forbidden confession that started with curiosity and ended with a silence that changed everything. If you've ever felt overlooked in your own relationship, if you've ever questioned where desire ends and betrayal begins, then stay with me, because this story might be more real than you expect. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next forbidden confession that could change the way you see love, loyalty, and temptation. We were just going to the beach house. That's how it started. A simple getaway, me, my husband, and our two friends, Julia and Nick. We'd all been close for years, and nothing ever felt off until that weekend. The house had 3 rooms, but when we arrived, only one was prepared. "We'll sleep together," my husband said casually. I laughed. Julia laughed. But something about it didn't feel like a joke. That first night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept playing scenes that never happened, yet. I was sharing space with 2 other adults who weren't my husband, and something about the setup felt deliberate. It wasn't just the sleeping arrangements. It was the way they looked at me, the way my husband smiled when Julia got too close. I started asking myself, was this a joke? Or was this the beginning of a true story of infidelity? The second day, things got more relaxed, more touch, more drinks, and fewer boundaries. At one point, Julia offered to help me with sunscreen, and her hands lingered longer than they should have. I looked at my husband. He said nothing, just watched. That's when I realized this wasn't casual. This was a forbidden confession forming in real time, and I was standing right in the middle of it. What disturbed me wasn't just what was happening. It was that I didn't want to stop it. I should have said something. I should have pulled back. But instead, I waited to see what would happen next, because part of me wanted it. And that's how emotional cheating begins, not with a kiss, but with curiosity, with the silence before the storm. That night, something changed. The lights were low, the wine had flowed freely, and the atmosphere was thick with unsaid things. We were sitting on the couch, me, my husband, Julia, and Nick, closer than ever. Our legs brushed. Our hands lingered. Julia leaned into me during a laugh, and her breath touched my neck. I looked at my husband again, and he smiled. A quiet, knowing smile. One that said, "It's okay." I felt the blood rush to my face. My heart pounded. It wasn't fear. It was anticipation. There's a moment in every cheating story where the body says yes before the mind even catches up. That was mine. Julia moved closer, and I didn't pull away. My husband's silence wasn't absence. It was permission. That's when I realized this was orchestrated. This was happening. And it wasn't just between me and her, it was all of us. Julia's kiss was soft, unexpected, but not unwelcome. My body responded before my brain could protest. I wasn't thinking about consequences. I wasn't thinking about loyalty. I was thinking about touch, about the forbidden desire that had been boiling under the surface. And right there, in the living room, my marriage stretched into something unrecognizable. Not broken, but no longer exclusive. A real act of infidelity was in motion. Nick didn't speak. He watched, calm, collected, like he knew his part would come. And I looked at my husband one last time before everything exploded inside me. He didn't stop it. He didn't flinch. That's when I knew this wasn't betrayal by accident. This was betrayal with consent. And that somehow made it even more intense. Because when no one says no, you stop knowing where the lines are. The room felt electric. Hands, glances, whispers, everything moved in slow motion. Julia's touch became bolder, and suddenly Nick was closer too. I wasn't being pulled, I was leaning in, with my husband there, fully present. There were no objections, just eyes, breath, skin. And inside me, something cracked open. Not fear, not doubt, just a silent acceptance that this was betrayal, and I wasn't stopping it. I wish I could say I felt shame in the moment, but the truth is, I felt free. For the first time in years, I wasn't shrinking to fit inside a marriage that had stopped seeing me. I was being seen, touched, wanted by more than one person. And the strangest part, I felt powerful. I was no longer reacting. I was leading. I was controlling the rhythm of that forbidden encounter, even while drowning in it. But guilt is patient. It doesn't arrive during the kiss. It waits for the silence after. As things unfolded between us, a voice in my head whispered, "What are you doing?" But I muted it, just for a moment longer, just to feel. Because real cheating stories don't happen with evil intentions. They happen when you felt empty for too long, and someone finally fills you. Still, a part of me fractured. Even as I felt pleasure, I sensed something slipping away. Something I might never get back. I looked at my husband again, and his eyes were on me, admiring me, as if proud. And that confused me more than anything. Because in that second, I didn't know if I was his wife, or part of a fantasy he had orchestrated. And that question still haunts me. The next morning, the house felt different. Quieter. Slower. The ocean still roared outside, but inside me, something had gone still. Julia and Nick were in the kitchen, smiling, laughing softly. My husband handed me a cup of coffee like nothing had happened. And maybe for him, nothing had. But for me, everything had shifted. That night wasn't just a memory. It was a mark, a line crossed, a true betrayal now written into my story. I watched everyone move as if the world hadn't cracked open just hours before. They joked. They cleaned up. My husband kissed my forehead like always. But inside, I was spiraling. It wasn't regret. It was disorientation. I wasn't sure what to do with the version of myself I had discovered. The one who said yes, who led, who wanted. And now, the one who was afraid of who she had become. Infidelity doesn't end at dawn, it lingers. I avoided eye contact most of the morning, especially with Julia, especially with myself. I stood in front of the mirror and didn't recognize my own reflection. Not because I was ashamed, but because I had never looked that alive. That's the paradox of forbidden confessions. They free you and break you at the same time. I wasn't just a wife anymore. I was someone who had allowed something irreversible and secretly didn't regret it. But then came the silence. The long drive home. No one mentioned the night. No one addressed it. My husband held my hand like always. But I noticed things. How his thumb brushed mine more intentionally. How he looked at me in the rearview mirror. Curious, proud, and distant. We had shared something, but we were further apart than ever. And I knew we'd never go back to what we were before. It's been weeks since that weekend, but it replays in my mind like it happened yesterday. Sometimes I wonder if I would make the same choices again. Part of me says yes. The other part still doesn't know. What happened wasn't just an accident. It was a mirror. One that reflected the truth I was afraid to face. Even the most faithful heart can wander when left unseen for too long. I don't blame my husband. Not completely. I don't even blame Julia or Nick. This wasn't about them. This was about me. About a woman who was tired of silence, of routine, of being half touched and half heard. This was a real story of infidelity, born not from evil, but from emptiness. And maybe, just maybe, from a desire to feel something again, anything. Since then, we haven't talked about it. Not once. It's as if it never happened. But I know it did. Every look, every pause, every quiet moment between us carries that night's shadow. And the worst part? It didn't ruin everything. It revealed what was already broken. That's the true cost of emotional cheating, not destruction, but clarity. Now I want to ask you, what would you have done in my place? Was it betrayal or awakening? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more real infidelity stories, confessions, and experiences that we're no longer afraid to say out loud. Let's keep exposing the truth, one forbidden story at a time.